He is a giant of Western Australian football in more ways than one. A towering figure physically and arguably the most decorated player in West Coast history. He also happens to have a positive win-loss record against Wayne Carey, still the best player I've ever seen. It was football's equivalent of Ali and Frazier. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for referring me to Ali.
Oh, the duck won't like that, mate.
No, you won't.
No, I don't. Look, he was no schmuck, Frazier. I mean, I think if I had to sort of define them, I think Carey the footballer was like Ali the boxer.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But you might have finished in front in your head-to-head with the great man.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
You'd like to think so. You know so, don't you? You started at 18 years and 70-odd days, but you'd already played 50-odd games in the Waffle at South Fremantle. That's amazing when you reflect on that.
Yeah, look, the Waffle was really important to a lot of us guys that came through the system for the Eagles. And we're proud of our Western Australian heritage. You know, South Fremantle was my club, the Bulldogs. My two idols were Stephen Michaels and Maurice Rioli. And as a young kid watching that, 9 years later, I made my debut and ran down the race with Maurice Rioli when he came back from Richmond. And he grabbed me and says, lead the boys out the front on my Waffle debut. So
wow,
that was pretty special for me to play with Madge. And from there, it just sowed the seed that I wanted to play, you know, VFL, AFL footy, go to Melbourne. And, you know, Stan Magro was a big influence on my career. Stan was a man's man, but he was really a hard taskmaster.
Did you go to training in your school gear? School uniform?
I did. Yeah, well, I was still at school, so I used to catch the bus.
Year 11?
Year 11,
yeah.
So...
Catch the bus to training?
Catch the bus to training and then catch it home. So
it's quaint, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good fun. It was good days because you had to be organised, you had to find your way there, and sometimes if you missed the bus, well, you had to hitchhike to training, so which wasn't hard.
Tell us about the family background. You're of Croatian descent?
Yeah.
Both sides of the family?
Both sides of the family. So Dad migrated in Australia in 1960. Met Mum the following year and, decided to share farm up in Carnarvon and just worked off the land. And me, Gary and Alan grew up on the market.
Three boys?
Yeah, three boys.
And they all played senior football?
All for South Fremantle, yeah. So
I wasn't aware of Gary until some recent research.
Yeah, so there's 10 years difference between me and Gary, but he was a good role model and a mentor for me as a young kid going through high school and then starting to play league footy because he'd been there and, our father passed away when I was pretty young, so I guess he became my father figure. Mm-hmm. So he really emphasised on the fact of, getting a job and working, but, he could see my passion for footy, so he just harnessed it a little bit for me, so it was good grounding.
You mentioned a bloke called Glen Jakovich. Mm. You promised me, Jacko, you're going to bring him on with you. I mean, I know you deserve a show in your own right, but the prospect of having the Jakovich brothers here was tantalising, man.
Yeah, well, I asked Alan and...
what did he say?
He declined. So, he just, since he finished footy, he never liked the media when he played footy, so
no.
he's...
He wasn't the Lone Ranger there.
No, and he was and ahhing, but he lives in Cobbs Harbour and he just got on the plane and went back and... It's logistically, he feels it's too hard, too big an effort to do that. So
he was so different to you in so many ways, wasn't he? He was shorter, rounder, more flamboyant. You agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. He was
and more of a showman. I mean, you didn't lack confidence, but Alan loved it. It was his stage, wasn't it?
He embraced it. He loved it, and I must admit, I know it's my brother, but that period in 1991, I think he kicked 71 goals in 13 or 14 games. He was a delight to watch. He was just on fire.
If you have a Melbourne affection, we loved him. I mean, that day, look, not many blokes pulled Chris Langford's pants down. Yeah. And one day at Princes Park, he just made Langford look like an amateur. Yeah,
he had some big hauls at Victoria Park. Gary Pert, I think, kicked 9 on him and kicked 11 at the MCG, including the soccer goal, which was over the head. So he loved those type of things. He was freakish. He was an enigma on his day. And just sad that he probably didn't play another 100 games.
I was going to ask you that. Now, he finishes his career with all these assets that we're talking about. You play 270-odd, he plays 54.
Yeah.
Any physical reason for that, or he just...
It wasn't his number one priority in his life, footy. Yeah. I don't think that, he loved the game, but with that comes training, Mike. And, Alan,
which you devoured.
Yeah, I love training. Yeah. And I think Alan... he just had so much skill and talent and just wanted to sit in the forward line and kick goals all day, but didn't want to do the 3K time trials.
Let me take you back, I think, to 1993. Melbourne is hosting West Coast.
Yeah.
Did Melbourne bring your parents over?
Brought Mum over.
Yeah, brought your mother over?
Yeah.
So
Dad
Mum's
had
there
passed
watching
away,
her two boys in opposition colours?
Yeah, she was a member. She was a guest of the Melbourne Football Club's luncheon at the MCC. And they presented her with a jumper that had half Melbourne and half West Coast, which was
nice.
It was a very nice touch by the Melbourne Footy Club.
Yeah.
And Alan loved his time in Melbourne. On this occasion, he had a blinder at the MCG, kicked 6 and kicked the last 2, and decided to.
It ended. I'm going to before I'll jump in on you. It ended in the most bizarre fashion I've seen in all the time I've been watching football. Player from Melbourne goes to an opponent from the West Coast and kisses him.
Yeah.
And you happen to be brothers.
Yeah, brothers. Yeah. So.
What did you think when that happened?
I got very close to snotting him, but I thought...
Are you serious or not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You didn't like it?
Well, I just didn't think it was, When I look back on it now, I think it was great for the game and it was great for that occasion, but we lost at the MCG. It was in our premiership defence in '93 and we weren't going all that well. Mm-hmm. And Mick was, pretty much on the warpath about our hunger and where we were going.
Was there any dialogue when Alan came to you? You wouldn't have been expecting that. Did you exchange words?
No, I expected something because I know what, as you referred to Alan before, as a showman, he loved that stage. He loved to kick a goal and tell the world. So, and I generally think that he, affectionately meant to do that. That it's his little brother, and he's
his big little brother, who he's just beaten.
Yeah, for the first time. So, but yeah, it was good for the family. Look,
it's a great moment. I mean,
I think it's a good moment.
The more reminders we have of that, it's still real life.
Yeah,
we can't have too many of those.
We can't have too much seriousness. It's football serious enough as it is. So
now that's coming from you.
Yeah.
We can't be too serious about our footy.
Wow.
Your first 122 games you played in, 82 wins, which is almost 70%. Can you believe it? You're a kid playing AFL football at school. You join this club that's on the march, becomes a juggernaut. That's amazing, isn't it? 2 premierships along the way and 3 grand finals.
Yeah, it was a fantastic ride, Mike. I loved it personally. I always wanted to play football in Melbourne, get drafted.
Your preference was to come here, was it?
Yeah, it was, because I used to watch the winners and I used to be football hungry. And
Break for the Blues?
I was a Carlton kid, yeah. I loved Carlton. Kenny Hunter, John Dorotich, all the West Australians you followed. Even, the Cracker brothers went to North Melbourne, but I just really liked Carlton in the, late 70s, early 80s with all their success. So, but then getting drafted to the Eagles,
So were you thrilled? Were you?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
I was.
Yeah.
I got taken as a priority draft selection with Mitchell White, and the Eagles were up and about. A few of my close mates that were good friends with Alan and went to school with Alan, which was John Warsold, Peter Sumich. I really looked forward to, playing footy with those guys. And then you had the Magnificent Seven, which was Chris Lewis, Scott Waters, Paul Pios and Chris Waterman, you throw in there, and Guy McKenna. So
there was some talent, wasn't there?
They were on the cusp of something special, and I thought, I've got to get it. I think I was smart enough to identify at a young age that it's going to be hard to get in this side, but I'm not going to die wondering because the success is going to come pretty quickly, and that's what it did. Did
you play were you ever under 100? I'm not talking about when you were a kid, but sort of when you were a mature footballer, you were about 100 Ks plus? Yeah,
102. Pretty much throughout. After 92, I probably still was growing it in my first couple of years. And then, 2 or 3 years in the gym, and a few more pre-seasons, that was it. You couldn't pretty much slim down anymore after that.
Let's talk about the gym. The view on the eastern seaboard was that something strange had happened to the West Coast player list in the early 90s.
Yeah.
There was a lot of cynical discussion here about what you blokes had done.
So you're referring to something untoward?
Well, I think the genuine belief was that you blokes must be doing something outside the rules to have developed as rapidly and as obviously as you did.
Well, it's complete nonsense. I guess as a young club coming through, after 2 or 3 years of doing some pre-seasons, you're going to get bigger in the bodies. I guess...
But everyone does pre-seasons, Glenn.
Yeah, I know, but blokes like Toby Bairstow was a captain of Geelong, John Dorotich, they referred to it. He says, how did these guys get so big in a couple of years? Well, we started doing weights 3 times a week in our pre-seasons from October, and we were part-time footballers. So we were coming in on a Monday, Tuesday morning at 5 a.m, led by John Morsfold, John Anea, and we were doing these crazy circuits just to get us, big in time. And come Saturday, we were pretty fatigued because we'd done probably 3 weight sessions. It wasn't until the dialogue that we had with John Dorotich and...
you had a conversation, didn't you, with Dora about
and
this?
he said, how did you guys get so big? And we said, well, we do weights 3 times a week.
But wouldn't you have said that we do weights at Carlton too?
He says they did it for 10 minutes a week.
10 minutes, yeah, okay.
So weights wasn't a big priority on there.
So, in a cumulative sense, how many hours were you doing weights a week?
Easy, we would have been doing 8 to 10 hours.
8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bairstow and Dorotich as raising this issue with you. I've seen Lee Matthews quoted on this, and I've had Billy Brownless and Paul Couch in that chair all say the same thing. Now, they just don't understand. Simple as that?
It's just sheer hard work, and we knew that there was a physical element that we were lacking. Every time we played in Perth, we would win. Go to Melbourne, struggle at the MCG, struggle at Waverley because of the big heavy grounds. It was more congested. West Australian football was free-flowing, and Mick changed that psyche, but we had to get bigger, and that took over 3 years of solid weight, solid pre-seasons. I'm talking high repetitions, heavy weights, and that's the reason why we, caught up. We went past the competition very quickly on a physical sense.
You got offended by that implication about substances, didn't you?
Yeah, extremely.
You did?
Extremely, because
let's set the record straight. You remember there was a Fox end-of-season discussion?
Yeah.
I happened across you, the very genial, amiable Glen Jakovich, and raised issue about what it was like as a young bloke coming to this footy club with so many people saying something's got to be wrong here because they've just got too big.
Well,
and then you blew up.
Yeah, I blew up because you protect your club and you know that wasn't going on. To add more light to it, after we started to have that success, we were the most drug-tested team in the competition.
Really? Yeah.
They were coming from everywhere.
So even the agencies gave
I think that was a directive from the AFL at the time, and rightfully so. That's what you should do. They're doing their due diligence. If a team's had rapid rise, you're not doing anything untoward. You're just making sure that everyone's playing by the rules.
Okay.
And I probably got drug-tested 6 or 7 times in a short period of time. And all negative tests. So, so I'm pretty proud of that because I prided myself on, doing the right thing all the time, both on and off the footy field.
Let's go back to Ali and Fraser. My guess is that you played on the duck 15 to 18 times in your career. Number, roughly?
I think it's around about that, 16 or 17
I reckon
times.
you know the answer to this. It's a difficult one, but I mean, you've always been honest when you're talking about yourself. How would you have scored it at the end?
Oh, it's pretty close. It would have been...
No, you don't mean that. You're fibbing now.
It would have been about 14-2.
He'll be in before we finish this.
Yeah, I know. No, I do a couple of events with Wayne every year, so it's a common joke, you know, that...
But I want the real answer. I want your truthful, heartfelt answer here.
I just gave it to you.
14-2.
Yeah.
He'll hate that, mate. You never played in the grand final against him, did you?
No, just missed
Almost
out.
in
94.
94.
So I guess that was at the peak of our team.
Were you looking forward to that?
I was, because we played our prelims on the same day, as you do, and we were playing Melbourne in Perth at the Waker, and we got up and won. And I think they were still going. There was still a quarter to go,
against
possibly.
Geelong?
Against Geelong, and I was actually barracking for North.
Really?
Because I wanted to play on... you're playing on the best player, arguably, over the last 50 years. To play them on grand final day in front of 100,000 people at the MCG.
I mean, I'm really fascinated by that.
You live for that.
How did you seduce Wayne Carey into wrestling with you so many times?
Yeah, it's interesting how we met. We played them on a Friday night at the MCG. It was 1992. It was the first time we come across each other's path. And it was just something that grabbed me straight away. When I came across him, he just had this strut. And the way he moved, I thought, gee, have a look at this guy, he thinks he's all right. And it's just, he wasn't deliberately doing it, it was just the way he moved.
That's him.
It was just him.
Yeah.
And he was running around everywhere. The ball had gone in the forward line and I was right on his hammer. And I just remember tackling him and I drove him into the ground. It was a bad free kick. And I've seen the ball there and Wayne was nearabouts where the ball was, and I was probably a little bit reckless and I give him one.
Did you? Where?
And,
Where'd you hit him?
I hit him in the head. So
Punched him in the head?
Because I was frustrated at myself, and he was starting to lip off at me a little bit. And, and he was... he was calling me slow and, you can't keep up and all these type of things. So it was, it was good banter out there. And when I got up, the umpire blew the whistle and the North faithful behind the goals went berserk. The umpire called a ball up. It was a definite free kick, even pushing the back, but he didn't see me slide one in there. So Wayne's got up running to have a shot on goal. The umpire says the ball up and Wayne's just punched me. And that's how we met. And the umpire reversed the free kick, 50-metre penalty, and Wayne got reported.
Really? Did he go out?
He got a week. He got a week for
yeah.
striking me. So he punched me in the arm. I just remember the following year we played them at the Wacker, and they got off to a flying start. They won the first 6 or 7 games. They'd beaten Collingwood at Victoria Park. They were just on fire, and he was the best player in the competition right at that point. And he gave me an almighty bath that I never had before. He took 15 marks, kicked 5. And Mick was very brutal in his assessment, and this was part of the premiership defence year, 93, where we struggled a little bit. And they celebrated on the ground. Pagan came out, fist pumping, and it was very embarrassing to us in front of our home crowd. And as I came off, I copped a mouthful from the spectators, and I just had a dirty day. And when I got in the change rooms, Mick just went through every one of the players, as he did. Just an honest assessment and a brutal assessment. And he got to me and he says, Glenn, and he always called me Jack, but when I was in trouble, he called me Glenn. He says, hey, Glenn, let me tell you something. See that player out there, Wayne Carey? He's 20 years of age, or 21 years of age, whatever he was at the time. He says, you're going to be playing on him for the next 10 years. He says, he embarrassed you in front of your parents, your family, your friends. He says, I've got a hint for you. He says, you learn to beat him or else I'll find someone who can.
Gee.
And that's pretty much
That's pointed, isn't it?
That was pointed, and I kind of needed that.
It hit the nerve?
Yeah, I kind of needed that because I kind of thrived on that type of challenge and that opportunity, and it was after that, that's I guess where the rivalry started, and we'd play each other for the next 5 or 6 years twice a year because North and West Coast were quite dominant.
Did his ego get in the way? And by that I mean, did he make a mistake in trying to be stronger than you when he should have tried to run you?
Yeah, that was... I think in the early 90s someone had mentioned that I had a good game against him, I think in one of the finals, and then we had to wait till the following season to play on each other again, and the media really built it up, as you mentioned it before. And I think because the media was so big over here, kind of got washed away a little bit in Perth, so I didn't have to live and breathe it, and I think he had to go through it a fair bit here. That's just the way I'm looking at it at the time, and he wanted to wrestle me because the papers just said that he's too strong for you, Jakovich is too strong for you, and I don't think he liked that. And then when the runner used to come out, and I maybe won a single contest, the runner would come out and he would just give it back to the runner, and then I knew I'm in here. Because
so the runner would say, Dennis says...
Dennis said, Centre...
get on your bike.
Yeah.
And he'd say, tell Dennis.
He told him to get on his bike. So, and it was quite funny, but I must admit, I had good support units. I had a guy by the name of John Worsfold talking to Wayne as well. So, and he wanted to knock Woosher out, and I said to him, I says, that's a wrong move, mate.
Yeah. The impact of the loss of Chris Mainwaring in 2007, personally and to the football club?
Yeah, it was tragic. It was a lost life of one of our most beautiful people that we had at our football club. He was having a few issues personally which we weren't aware of. And something today that we hear about men's health, and you speak out when you're struggling with a few things. Chris, fair to say, just bottled it all up because he was worried about too many other people. He always looked after people too kindly. And when we didn't realise one of our own was struggling.
So you're talking about his mental demons, not necessarily simply a drug issue?
No, the connotation of drug doesn't sit well with me because I think it's overplayed because of that factor.
With Mainey?
Yeah, but what happened on that day, I don't know, we don't know, but we obviously know there was, he died of something, whether it be a drug overdose. Obviously that's what it was in the end. I'm not naive either, but... Chris was, it shouldn't have happened.
Has your contact with him before that been regular?
Yeah. Mainly I saw Maney a fair bit because I started working in the media. He was heavily involved with Channel 7 and he was a bit of a mentor for me. And, I was very close with Maney through my footy and then post-footy with both, him and Rani, his wife at the time, and his two kids, Zach and Maddie. He was a family man. He was everything. He was everything to a lot of, West Coast Eagles people, supporters and the club. And then, when I got that phone call on the Monday...
Who was the phone call from?
One of the journalists rang me and he was really rushed on the phone and then he hung up. He says, "Have you heard anything about Maney?" And I go, no. And he says, I've got to go. And he hung up the phone. And I've got this, I'm going, something's not right here. And I rang Woosha and his wife Georgina answered the phone and I knew then when
Did you really? So
tone of her voice that Maney had passed.
Did you, reflecting on that period, did you think he was just a bit depressed?
Yeah, I heard he had a few, issues going on and he was struggling with his work and there was a few other issues going on which, you just thought he'll get over it.
When you're as close as you were to him and as you are in football clubs, and you're young, you're in your 30s at that time, right?
Yeah.
How long does it take you to come to terms with that?
You don't come to terms with it. You just learn from the lessons of it about checking in with your close family and friends, because it can happen to anyone.
Did you cry?
Devastating,
Yeah?
Yeah, I've still got his funeral card on my desktop at home and I look at it and I had a lot of great memories with him. One of my favourites was, which I have, is us two kissing the Premiership Cup in '94.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what a magic moment that was. And we had a couple of reunions for 20 years of '92, '94. And now we do a toast for him, which is sad. Tragic. He was a big part of our lives as a person, not the footballer. He was a champion footballer, but as a person.
I want to we'll stay in this sombre mood. Ben Cousins' career and life spiralling out of control.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Mercifully, he's still with us.
Yeah.
But that must trouble you.
It does because, Ben was a great footballer. He was a great lad. He was a cheeky lad. And he was a kind person. He was a very grounded person.
Did you see this coming? When the full extent of this was revealed, were you shocked or not?
Not towards the end, no. When he got sacked, obviously 05, 06, there was, some growing concerns. You could sense in his behaviour, it wasn't the Ben that I knew when he first came to the club 9 years earlier. And I guess everyone had an opinion. The media had a big focus on it in Perth and obviously from afar. And, the club was in the midst of, trying to win a premiership. And, they tried their best. I believe they tried their best to try and help Ben during that period. There was numerous meetings with his father, Brian, and, Ben felt that he didn't have an issue. But, the club gets criticised a lot, but I don't think the people over here realise how much the club tried to do to help Ben. And then when he went to rehab in America, Ian Miller, who's a close family friend of the cousins of Brian, obviously played footy with him. He's the welfare officer at the West Coast Eagles now and does a lot of good work for the football club. He minded Ben right through that period.
And he's a very good man, Ian Miller.
Yeah, so for people to say that the club swept it under the carpet and weren't helping Ben and it's the club's fault, everyone had an opinion and that's okay. Everyone was quite critical, which is, from outside looking in, that's understandable. But now you've got the national drug average doubled in WA for ice, and my role now being in recruitment, and I see what it does to families, you can't criticise it because you don't understand what the addiction is doing. And until you research and invest in it, we got a good young kid that's in a lot of trouble.
But there's disquiet to a certain level on the eastern seaboard about the 2006 West Coast Premiership win.
Yeah.
You'd be aware of that.
Yeah.
Simple, it's simplistic, but I'll couch it in these terms. Do you believe that that flag win was tainted by the behaviour of the West Coast players?
To a certain extent, on face value, yes.
What's that mean?
Because what happened post that, there was a few other incidents, a few other players. There was 3 or 4 that were in trouble.
Drug-related trouble?
Yeah. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, was it tainted? From a small minority, because we're expected to behave a certain way, as stand-up role models for the community through our football, and I understand that. You've got to embrace that. So if you get caught for drink driving, or if you get in a fight or something like that, it damages the club, reputation, sponsors and so forth. But my question to, I guess, a lot of the people that harp on that, including yourself and another number of other, big-name journalists over here in Melbourne, well, if you're going to do that, go and look at the last 30 Premiership Cups. I'm sure you'll find a few that are tainted in those areas where there was not much media and publicity.
That's a legitimate response.
And I think that's how if you're going to have a crack at our club, which, gloves off, fair enough, but let's go through the 80s or the 70s or the 90s,
It's a fair point.
And I've heard things around the traps about, did you hear what happened to that club? I don't buy into that, because at the end of the day, to win one is bloody hard. And for those 2006 guys, there's about 18 of them, Bo Waters, Dean Cox, Chris Judd, Darren Glass, who's arguably one of the best people I've met. They're absolutely stand-up citizens and done a lot for that club, post that and pre that. So they deserve to be a premiership team, which they are.
That's a given. We're not disputing that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would pick you up on, you, on your own admission, believe there's tainting to a certain level. You said they're your words. And I think when you say 3 or 4 might be implicated, I think that's a very conservative estimate. I'm thinking 7 or 8.
No, I disagree with you there. But my disappointment for them through that period, if you want to say that was tainted, is that group. I never thought I'd see a better midfield than Kemp, Pike, Matera and Mainwaring. Come in Cox, Judd, Cousins and Kerr. 10 years later, 12 years later, they're potentially all Hall of Famers, those 4 right there. I'm sorry for them that they didn't win another one. And it's because of that behaviour, if you want to call it tainted, which it probably is, cost them for, you see what Geelong did post from 2007 onwards. I sometimes look at them and think, gee, that 06 side
should have done that.
Should have at least had a crack at one more.
Yep.
But what happened to their number 1 player? He's into drug addiction. Chris Judd leaves, so you lose 2 Brownlow medalists within a month. And then the wheels just fell off.
You're a great player, there's no doubt about that. I mean, West Coast have acknowledged your contribution to the footy club and you're in the Hall of Fame, as you should be. It was, I can't say, I think I probably preferred to watch Alan at his best than you.
Yeah,
because
that's
I had
fair to say,
an affection for the Ds, and he was such a flamboyant player. But it's been a brilliant career. Congratulations, and nice to see you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
This has been a Fox Footy production.
Just got a call from a bloke called Carey, is it?
Part of the Fox Sports Network.